Discover just how far you'll go to expand your understanding of life's greatest mysteries. There's just one place on this planet with so much to offer. Now is the time for you to have the royal experience.
All right, it's 2 p.m. Central African time. A very good afternoon to you. You're tuned into your window into Eswatini's evolving business and economic landscape. Good afternoon indeed. Welcome to Market View. Today, our focus turns to one of the most ambitious financial projects on the national agenda, the establishment of a national cooperative bank. This initiative, spearheaded by the Ministry of Commerce, Industry and Trade, seeks to transform how local cooperative access finance, how they scale their operations, as well as contribute to inclusive economic growth. With projected assets exceeding 3.5 billion Malangeni, the ministry has teamed up with the German cooperative Raiffeisen Confederation, the DGRV, a global authority in cooperative finance, to lay the groundwork for what would become one of Eswatini's most significant institutional milestones. Already, consultations with cooperatives across the country are shaping the design of this new financial institution. But as excitement grows, so do the questions. Are local cooperatives ready for this level of financial sophistication? Can governance and accountability match the ambition of the plan? Later in the program, we'll be unpacking these critical issues with Fernando Espinoza, the director of the DGRV. He's currently working with government on the bank's development framework. So stay tuned as we explore the economics, the opportunities, as well as the readiness behind Eswatini's push for a national cooperative bank right here on Market View. Good afternoon again. Let's kickstart the show with our business news. In our first story today, with the government set to implement salary reviews this year, the Minister for Finance, Honorable Neil Reichenberg, has outlined the expected impact on the national budget. The minister indicated that the public sector wage bill could reach approximately 1 billion Malangeni next year. Speaking during the ministry's Finance in Focus program, the Honourable Minister further explained the measures government will undertake to accommodate the salary review, as well as the strategies already implemented to contain and reduce the wage bill.
This year's budget is going to be impacted, definitely meaning that we're going to have an over-expenditure on the wage bill front. So we are now looking at where can we make cuts in government to try to really not have the whole budget go over at the end of the year. So we're trying to make cuts to fit in the salary review that was done this year. Next year is going to be even tougher because the wage bill is going up from more or less 800 million to more or less 1 billion. And so next year, even though we're probably going to have if you look at this year's expenditure was about 32.6 is more or less this year's expenditure. Next year it's probably going to go up at probably about 2.5 around there billion, 2.5 to 3 billion, we hope. Once we get there, we'll know all the truth, and it's meaning that the bulk of that will now be utilized for the salary review exercise, meaning there's not going to be much left next year for anything else to spend on as a government. But at least it means that we continue. We've now done the review, which was long overdue, and we're going to have to try and make sure that we can afford it as government going forward. But at the same time, even though there might be expenditure cuts, I will be fine as government, and we're not going to necessarily load more money for salary review. It just means that the year that's coming, we don't have an increase in the budget for other things. As you know, we've been trying to push the capital budget up aggressively and do certain things for growth. It means next year we won't be able to do those kind of things. But at least it means what we have in the budget, we shouldn't have to cut too badly. But there is inflation, meaning that there will be pressure next year in next year's budget. There's going to be a lot of pressure in next year's budget because of the salary review exercise. But again, I think big picture wise, we must keep in mind as a country, 7 years ago, our wage bill to total expenditure, we were the second worst in the world. There's only one country worse than us, but our wage bill was 42% of our total expenditure. So which means that of all the money you have, you were spending 42% on wages, civil servant wages. Over the last 7 years, that's come down to 32%. So we've actually done very well over the last 7 years to actually try to bring that as a percentage down. Obviously now causing a lot of the pressure which we're under now, hence this review was necessary and due. But at the same time now, this review is going to take us to more or less a 36%. So we're not going all the way back to 42%, we're going back to 36%. At the same time, knowing we actually want to get to about 25%. So again, over the years coming, we're going to have to be tight again and try and review who's in the civil servants. Can we possibly even try and reduce numbers? We'll see what we can do as government to try to bring that into the right balance. We delivering good services to the nation, but at the same time paying people what is due and making sure that you're giving them the respect that they need on the employment front. And so over the years, we'll continue to look at that and see what we can do to bring that more and more in line with the norm where we need to be.
All right, that was Minister Neil Reichenberg on some of the projections that they have as the Ministry of Finance. We'll go for a net break now. We have our discussion after the break.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.za.
Right, welcome back. The Ministry of Commerce, Industry and Trade is working around the clock to establish a national cooperative bank, which is a game-changing initiative for the Kingdom of Eswatini. With projected assets of over 3.5 billion emalangeni, the ministry has partnered with the renowned German cooperative Raiffeisen Confederation to drive this vision forward. Consultations with local cooperatives are already underway, setting the stage for a strong, inclusive financial institution. However, many local cooperatives have struggled to manage members' finances effectively, raising questions about whether they are fully prepared for such an ambitious undertaking. To delve deeper into how ready the country is for this transformation, we're now joined in studio by the director of the German Cooperative Raiffeisen Confederation, Fernando Espinosa. Good afternoon and welcome to the program.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
How are you doing, Fernando? You doing good?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Thank you. Look, I think the Kingdom of Eswatini's economy will be doing good once this establishment is done, right? And it's quite an ambitious thing. What is the overall objective of this study on establishing a cooperative bank in the Kingdom?
Okay. The overall objective that we have is assess the feasibility, the readiness, and also the roadmap to establish this as a cooperative bank. What we want to create is a financial platform that has financial instruments for the cooperative sector. And this is a bank that will be done by the cooperative sector and by the cooperative sector.
And what are the specific aspects really that you're assessing in this study? And perhaps we also do want to delve into how this study will fit into Eswatini's broader financial inclusion and cooperative development strategy.
Yeah, what we are analyzing from the cooperatives is the financial health, the governance infrastructure, the membership participation and engagement that they have, the liquidity, the capital mobilization capacity that they can have. And also it's important to mention that this establishment of the cooperative bank in Eswatini is totally aligned with the strategy that the Ministry of Commerce have trying to create the financial inclusion in the country. And it is in the development plan that the minister have.
Yeah, so far, if you were to perhaps just whisper to us, if we really are looking feasible and liquid and healthy, as you put it, are we?
Yes, there is diverse spectrum. You can find cooperatives that are really financial sound, good management, leadership, membership engagement, but there are other cooperatives that they need to be supported. And that's why DGRB is here, trying to give this support for these cooperatives with capacity building, digitalization, and oriented to this strategy as a whole.
Yeah, and I suppose when you say ones that are well run, you're assessing everything from record keeping and, their statements, everything really that speaks to a healthy cooperative. If you were to give us like a proportion, what does that look like in terms of percentage when we're speaking cooperatives that meet at least the minimum standards?
Yeah, we can say until now, the preliminary results that we have is like between 20 to 30% of the cooperatives, the SACOs and some other cooperatives, really reach these minimal based and the standards that we establish. There is another 40% that they need this help, this support to be part of this cooperative bank. But it's important because last week we developed this first roundtable, and we see that all the movement is really acknowledge what is happening in the market. So that's one first good step.
Yeah, and in terms of challenges, we can count management skills. It could be member participation, it could be liquidity, it could be regulation, it could be trust. What are some of the challenges that you've recognized?
Actually, the ones that you mentioned are part of those challenges. Yeah. The participation of the members, the engagement that they have is one of the main challenges, or the key challenge that we have. The financial health in some cases as well, the governance, which is something that we are working a lot here in the country. But it's important to mention that these challenges are not just in Eswatini. We can find this all around the region in other countries as well.
So they're not unique to Eswatini. They are quite common everywhere. And in terms of fixing those challenges, it's never something that is, a big of a challenge, right?
Yeah, we need to work with them. And the idea that we have is that we need to work in phases. The process will be established in phases. So the first phase maybe could be important and interesting to work strategically with the large cooperatives, for example. Yeah. So they are able to work with that. And after that, through the targeting support that we can develop to the cooperatives, they can join us in the future as well.
Yeah, and with those, let's say, existing challenges within these different cooperatives, are those challenges not going to manifest to the broader vision of this cooperative bank that we want to have now?
I think that all the system wanted to have. This is the momentum, the exact momentum where we need to develop this bank.
Yeah.
And also exist this political will. Yeah. So we need to take advantage of that.
So in your assessment, you would say confidently that Eswatini cooperatives are ready to establish a bank?
Exactly.
Okay.
Not all with conditions, as I said, but we can continue developing the idea and establishing the Eswatini Cooperative Bank.
What key gaps need to be addressed first for that to happen?
Let's say, in the other hand of the cooperatives, the financial health is important. The governance structure is one thing that we need to work with. And also the regulatory and the legal framework. We need to work together with the governance. The liquidity is part of what we are analyzing and looking forward what are the next steps that we can work.
And education is obviously a given.
The building capacity is part of our ADN, let's say, as DGRB, as the work that we are doing here in the country.
What would you say the level of capitalization or membership strength would be required for the bank to operate sustainably?
This is a really interesting question because based on international experience, we can talk about 50 million in Malangeni. But based on our Banking Act, we have 3 categories for the establishment of this bank. And we go to the category C, which aligns to the rural development and the financial inclusion and cooperatives. So this is the opportunity that we have. In this specific category, we can talk about between 8 to 15 millions. The good point that we saw in the roundtable is that there are this will and there are cooperatives that already can start supporting this amount.
Yeah, and then are there existing models that we can sort of adopt from other countries and co-opt into our own model? I mean, you told me from Ecuador, there's Colombia right next to you, and a lot of countries in South America. We have South Africa right next to us. There's a lot of more developed countries. There's some models that we can, bring into our own model here.
Absolutely. We have some examples, and we are studying these examples in this business model that these cooperative banks have. For example, in the region from Kenya, Tanzania, Ethiopia, we have in Asia, India, for example, and as you mentioned, Brazil, Ecuador, Colombia, that has also some experience. But it's important to point that we're not going to copy these models. We are going to create something that is based on our culture, based on our traditions, and based on what we really need as a country.
Given the current rate of cooperative failures or weaknesses in Eswatini, what lessons can be learned for ensuring that indeed this cooperative bank is a success?
The main lesson learned is that the fragmentation weakness in the system and the ecosystem. So we need to try to create this one voice and talk the same language as a sector, as a movement. That's the main challenge that we have.
Yeah, and I suppose fragmentation becomes the biggest problem there because if you want to, a bank speaks to harmony. Exactly. All the cooperatives come together.
Otherwise, it's impossible to.
Otherwise, it's impossible indeed. And what mechanisms are you going to put in place to sort of safeguard, if you want, the bank from the same challenges that are affecting cooperatives?
Yeah, we recommend individual oversight structure, a legal and regulatory framework for a cooperative bank.
For accountability.
Exactly. Of course, this base risk analysis based on audit units and supervisory. And I think that we can add a shared code of conduct and ethics. This is really important to continue with this idea because we're talking about the governance as well.
You mean like a universal one that they can all own together?
Exactly. And we can respect and apply.
And account to.
Yes.
Fantastic. What kind of regulatory support, if we really just drill into now regulatory support, and I suppose that one becomes very important for accountability again, or oversight that you think is necessary from the government and the Central Bank of Eswatini?
That's a really interesting thing. First of all, we have the total support from the Ministry of Commerce, Industry and Trade since the beginning. So this is aligning to the strategy that they have, and they are supporting us in all the steps that we have, starting from the roundtable banks. What we have is the support also from BBR. This is the Association from Banks from Germany. So they will visit us the next week. With other counterparties and partners that will help us and guide us to establish this specific cooperative bank. This is the most important thing, how we can share these experiences and learn from them. We're not waiting to have a dictate from that side, but we want to learn from them, and we have this orientation in some way to work. We need to continue working together and collaborate, with the central bank and also with the FSRA, which is really important for us. Continuously dialogue, trying to see what the policy is established here in the country, and the main important, a legal and regulatory framework that can help us to have these next steps forward. The licensing, the kind of licensing that we are going to obtain from the central bank is also needs to be clarified and really have on mind.
Well outlined.
Exactly.
Yeah. Perhaps as a parting shot, and I asked a question that's almost similar to this one, but just to ground this conversation, just how important is this cooperative bank in our economy in Eswatini, given, of course, that the lifeblood of our economy are SMEs, cooperative banks obviously playing a major role there. And then if we assess the existing challenges within our economy alone, which is outside of cooperative banks, just how big of an integral role will the bank play? How important is it?
It's more than important. The financial inclusion means that everyone has the access to products and services. And through these products and services, you can really have a better life. And that's why a central bank can reinvest all the amount of all the money that you talked at the beginning, 3.5 billion of Emalengeni are on the market. But we need to reinvest in the same sector, in the movement. So it's important for us to focalize that this is cooperative bank is a bank created by the movement, for the movement, and with the movement. That's what we are doing here.
That's a perfect parting shot. Let me not ruin that. Fernando Espinoza from the DGRV. I hope I'm not butchering that. And of course, we're assessing the country's readiness for the National Cooperative Bank. Thank you for staying with us. We have more for you. We assess the markets now with our economist, Sanela Sibia, after the break.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.sz. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.sz.
When you choose your adventures, you do so with an open heart and a desire for the unexpected. You embark on journeys to discover new worlds full of wonder. You choose a path to awaken your senses, a world to make you look up and realize just how inspiring this life can be. Arrive and awaken your heart. Explore life in ways only thought possible in your dreams. Discover just how far you go to expand your understanding of life's greatest mysteries. There's just one place on this planet with so much to offer. Now is the time for you to have the royal experience.
Our market analysis here on Market View now with our economist, Sanela Sibia, who is taking center stage for the last 7 minutes of the program, giving us the overview of what is happening. Sanela, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ngumalo.
Yes, Mr. Sibia, please go ahead.
Good afternoon to the viewer. So I am, just looking at the markets today, Ngumalo, what we're seeing is a bit of a mixed picture coming through from, the US, and also when you juxtapose that with what is happening in the Asian markets and the European markets. So we're just seeing two divergent pictures there. We're starting in the US, and also when you're looking at the futures data, it does show that there is a bit of an uptick within the US. And when you look at the Dow Jones Industrial Average, it seems to have been going for another new time high, gaining some 472 points. And then the Nasdaq Composite, they're gaining some 263 points. And the S&P 500 sitting comfortably there at 6,700, largely driven by the fact that we're seeing a bit of positive talks coming through from, President Trump that China and the US trade deal there. Though there are still those fundamentals that are weighing in on the economy, the US economy, but what remains resolute is that markets are now focusing on the earnings that are coming out, Mr. Ngumalo. And then when we move on to the European markets, what we're seeing is a bit of divergent performance there, with the FTSE 100 losing some 5 points in today's trade, and the CAC 40 losing some 4 points thereabouts, just flatlining, but on the negative, largely driven by the sentiments within, the retail space in London, just showing signs of weakness. And, there are those budget worries that we are looking into when it comes to that London market there, because as we know, the Labour Party wants to get more people to work while trying to balance the budget, and we're just waiting to see how the Chancellor there of the Exchequer there is going to present a budget. And then within France, we do know there is a bit of that political turmoil. Now you are now having to balance that with the debt issue, so it does bring in a bit of volatility within the French markets there. But when you look into Germany, we're seeing Germany there just gaining a bit in terms of a bit of momentum, largely driven by the weaker euro, and we know that German economy is an exporting economy, even though in today's trade the euro seems to be getting a bit of ground. But in the past 3 days, it was amongst its tough points. When you move on into Asia, Mr. Ngumalo, what we're seeing there is the Nikkei breaking ground, breaking that 50,000 mark for the first time, all on those hopes of the Prime Minister Takanyama, who's just been elected into office last week, and we know that she is a business-friendly candidate, so the markets just love her election there. And then when you go into the Hang Seng, the fact that we seem to be moving towards a normalization of the trade deal between the mainland China and the US, so we're seeing markets in both the mainland and in Shanghai reacting positively to those news there. With the Shanghai, Mr. Ngumalo, just closing 4 points shy of that 4,000 mark. So it seems the bulls are starting to graze, Mr. Ngumalo, when you're just looking at the way that the markets are performing. Coming into the South African stock market, what we are seeing there, Mr. Ngumalo, is a bit of losses in today's trade. Now that comes on the background of that profit taking in the prices of gold. I mean, remember, gold was at that 4,200 mark just a couple of weeks ago, but now it's back on that 4,055, and most likely it's going to continue heading down on the downward trajectory back to the 3,000 mark. So that tends to affect the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, since it is a gold-heavy, a metal-laden stock exchange, and also the financials they're rebalancing their books this time around. And then in the Eswatini Stock Exchange, we remain relatively stable. We've already spoken about gold, staying steady there at 455, largely driven by the profit sharing and the fact that we're seeing a bit of risk just moving away in the markets, particularly along those tariffs. So there is a bit of less appetite to hedge now on the investor side. And then when you look in the price of Brent crude oil, what we're seeing there is a bit of, a recession in terms of the price from the last week's 65 to what we're seeing today in opening week. We are now sitting at 64.76. Now, this is largely driven by that expectation of a bit of a repression within the UK markets, while at the same time, until we get clearer direction in terms of what's going to happen between the US and China trade relations there. So the markets do remain a bit, a bit focused on a subdued outlook for gold. And then in terms of the currencies today, Mr. Nxumalo, the Lilangeni is weaker across the board, largely driven by that slide in the price of gold. Thank you, Mr. Nxumalo.
Mr. Spear, thank you for your time. I appreciate your insights indeed. And there it is, your market view to kickstart the last week of the month of October. And indeed, it was finance in focus, and no pun intended there. We started the program with Minister Neil Reichenberg with the finance in focus, looking at the wage bill of the Kingdom of Eswatini and the projections that they have as the Minister of Finance. And then we analyzed the cooperative environment in the Kingdom of Eswatini with the DGRV, with Fernando Espinones, I beg your pardon there, who helped us really understand why we need a cooperative bank in the kingdom now more than ever. And then we kept things off with our economist, Sanela Sibia, with the market. Finance in focus. That is the going notion of the day. Enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye.